My grandfather was a deep lover of history, and because of that, I got a really strong historical education from him from a really early age. He taught me all about the Mughals and the Mongols and what happened to India in the process.
Hi all, it's Silas Ram, AsianCultureVulture.com. How are you doing? Thanks for joining me. Yes, we're back in London and we are talking to the poet novelist Nikita Gill. She's going to be appearing at the Jaipur Literature Festival at the British Library in June. If you're watching this later, it doesn't matter. We're going to be talking a lot about her work, and she's best known for Hekate, a Greek mythology-inspired story. There's a new book coming out in September called Styx. She's going to be talking about that and her acting and other writing. She's an amazing artist. Let's go and meet her. Can you tell us a little bit about how you began this story? What were the origins of it?
I started writing the trilogy back in 2019. In 2018, my book Great Goddesses came out, and Great Goddesses was basically a poetry collection which follows the chronology of the gods. Based off Hesiod's genealogy. And it was really fascinating to me because I discovered that Greek myth very much is a living thing. And even the poets don't really agree with each other because all of, the Greek myths were written by poets, just like our Mahabharata and Ramayana were poems, epic poems. So Hekate came to me in 2019 after I had written a bit in Great Goddesses, which was basically about her. She appears very briefly as part of a poem of three. And so I began writing her story based off that. And then Styx and Nyx also appear very briefly in single poems. And these three goddesses really fascinated me. In Hesiod's Theogony, he writes about Hekate as this incredible goddess. She is the goddess of what we now call witchcraft, but in those days was called just magic. Necromancy, which is the gift of bringing the dead back to life. The crossroads, the keys, and liminal spaces. Quite strange things to be the goddess of. All three goddesses are goddesses of the underworld. Hekate is the goddess of necromancy and witchcraft, which again are quite occult things. And Styx is the goddess of the river of the dead. She's the river that guides the dead to where they're supposed to be.
With Styx coming out, can you explain the relationship between the three, because they appear in each other's stories?
So all three goddesses appear in Hekate. All of the Greek gods, the Olympians, the Titans, they're a big family, a very dysfunctional family, but a very big family. So Styx happens to be Hecate's aunt, and Asteria, who's Hecate's mother, actually gives Hekate to Styx to raise because she is being hunted by Poseidon and Zeus. Hekate basically is a child asylum seeker who faces this all-encompassing loss that child refugees do. And she's raised by an aunt who isn't necessarily very maternal. Asteria, Hecate's mother, is the goddess of night oracles and falling stars, which is such a beautiful thing to be, I think, a goddess of. And Nyx is the goddess of the night. And she's fascinating because whatever she wants to opt out of, she can. She's quite a formidable figure, so godlike that it was actually quite hard to write her story, because how do you give conflict? And how do you create obstacles for a figure that just can go, well, I'm not dealing with this because I'm me.
You're really a poet who kind of write these long form poems. Would that be a fair description?
I was very inspired by Euripidean verse. I think that Euripides is probably one of the greatest poets of antiquity. All of the women that he wrote were advocates. His Trojan women has been something I've been wanting to adapt for so long.
You're very confident of being able to reshape or change the narrative.
No, you're right. It's quite funny. A few years ago, one of the greatest criticisms that was levied at one of my pieces of work, which is Great Goddesses, was, Nikita Gill takes like the ancient and she makes it modern. And I just was like, I don't think that's a critique. I don't think that's that's negative. I was like, that's a compliment. I'm going to put that in my bio. So I was like, no, I don't actually take that personally at all. Casting Hekate as a child asylum seeker and creating a story which people not only believe, that makes them, understand what it's like to be a child asylum seeker. I think that is one of the gifts you are given as a writer, to be able to do these things and to be able to show an audience that, these themes that we're dealing with are not modern themes, they're ancient themes. Refugees aren't a concept that was developed 5 years ago to upset a certain group of people. There have been refugees for countless reasons for thousands of years. That's the job of the writer, isn't it? Our job is to be the archivists of the human soul.
Did you come to the Greek mythology through Hindu mythology and Mahabharata, Ramayana, all that, and seeing similarities between Hindu gods and Greek gods and the kind of civilizational commonality? Is that how you came from one to the other?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So my mother and my grandfather were my storyteller voices, and my grandfather, who was my mother's father, was a deep lover of history, and because of that, I got a really strong historical education from him from a really early age. He taught me all about the Mughals and the Mongols and what happened to India in the process, the story of like India, which is so I would say so interesting, both as from a cultural perspective, but also a historical perspective. And the stories that we collected along the way and the fact that they change even all throughout India was so interesting to me because it meant that there were these poets and writers who were consistently in dialogue with each other, which is where, we've got the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, and within, the Mahabharata, the Gita. My mother was the one who loved Euripides. So she passed that love on to me. And also the Norse myths, which was so fascinating, the Poetic Edda, which was one of them. And then she fell in love with Irish folk tales when they were living in Northern Ireland. And so she fell in love with those, and she gave me a lot of those folk tales. So we have a education which is so rich in so many different types of pantheons.
How old were you when you left Belfast?
I think I was a few years old. I can't
Okay.
remember. I mean, obviously, I
Oh yeah,
was a very
right.
small
Okay.
child,
But
but
the
also
bulk
like
of your education then, your early education was in India.
completely, yeah.
Right.
That
Okay.
was, I mean, even my college was in India.
Were you reading Greek mythology there?
Yes. So I think what was really lovely was that it wasn't school that gave me Greek mythology, it was my mother.
So what now with Jaipur Lit? What is the theme? Is it about the book that's coming up?
Yes, so I think we're going to be working through poetics essentially with the Jaipur Lit Fest, but also I get to be in conversation with the amazing Tishani Doshi. I'm really looking forward to it. I think this is what the Jaipur Lit Fest does so well, is bring together a lot of like South Asian voices from around the country, around the UK, I would say, so around all four,
Yeah.
countries, and bring us together. And I think it's going to be really special.
And you've been to the Jaipur Lit Fest in India? You haven't?
No, actually, I think that
Oh,
is something that I need to follow up with
I
them.
see. But
And
I'm a bit shocked. I had assumed that you had
I
been.
mean, I am shocked too. I think it'll be
Yeah.
good to like pull this up with them, because actually I only live about 4 hours away. Well, my family only lives 4 hours away from Jaipur. So
Okay.
it's not like I'm actually that far away as well from the literature festival
No,
itself.
I mean it would be a bit of a coming home in a inverted commas in a
Yeah,
sense. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Well, we should float that idea in this interview anyway.
Yes, thank you.
I'm
Yes.
also very stunned by the amount of social media followers you have. And how does a writer build this kind of audience? Can you give a tip to other writers who are no doubt watching this or thinking, how
Oh,
how did
oh,
you, how did you build this audience?
I think I was laughing about this a little while ago because I think it's consistently taking a risk on yourself. And I think, what we do as human beings, and we especially do it as writers, is we over edit ourselves and we constantly overthink. We're like, oh, should I say that? Should I say that? Should I say that? And the more you over edit yourself, the more you're editing down the stories that need to be heard. And I do think that like some of my strongest work I do is literally work which I create to respond to a cultural moment, which means that it's put out almost the same day or within 24 hours, like that first iteration. Each of the pieces of work I do responds to different things. So a book is something which I've taken a lot of time to sit with, right? It's been edited, re-edited again. Whereas my social media, I feel like, is a place that I can really be myself, and like I talk to the moment. That's what I do. And then it's like different types of social media feed that. And then with film, it's a completely different thing. I've gone back into acting recently, and that's been really lovely. I was in a short film a little while ago, and it's been so interesting to step into a
And
character
what's it
someone
called?
else
Where can
wrote.
we see it? I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest in your
Yeah,
acting.
I'm waiting for them to give the go
Oh,
ahead
I
to be
see.
able to
Yeah.
start talking
Oh,
about it. But
that's cool.
it is a beautiful film. It is an all. woman and femme cast, and it's about something which I think that will resonate with a lot of women, and it's a really important key point. But I was very lucky that the director, who is this incredible woman, just like picked me up and said, I would love for you to be in this film. And
Wow.
then I played Hekate in the British Library selection of the play. So we'll see.
I'm going to I'll ask you something that's just not related to JLF, but I think you're doing a discussion with Dr. Ransing about
Yes,
the
that's
P word.
correct.
So,
Yes.
I mean, that's something we've covered in the past as when it first came as a play. It is a refugee story. What made you want to be part of those kinds of discussions?
I really think so. My family was very deeply affected by partition. My grandfather, again, my storyteller voice, when he was a teenage boy for a while there, he was a refugee until, he got very lucky. His father never gave up on finding him, and he did find him in the end. But that was a time of such great trauma and tragedy and separation. And so it's a cause I carry very close to my heart. And I consistently engage with stories. I think my mum, when I was very little, used to take me to Amnesty to kind of talk to people. So I had an education in the language of displacement from a very early age. And so, any kind of piece of theater, any kind of like book which is around that, I would just love to read or know more about or watch. So I think that's where this has come from. I think these conversations are they have never been more urgent looking at the world today.